and thank you for tuning in with Melissa and Andre on Contemporary Living with Farmer and Hill, where we aim to provide solutions to everyday living because we believe that the more local you are, the more vocal you can be. I'm excited. Aren't you excited?
Yes.
We are excited about
excited.
our first live interview, and we are going to be talking about unions. Now, you might be familiar with unions, and you may not be, but you do not want to miss this episode because we have someone here, our guest, who is in it. He's in the fight, and we're going to talk about that today. So I'm going to go ahead and let Andre take over so we can begin this interview session.
Thanks, Melissa. Before we get started, I'm going to give us a history lesson on unions. Now, just to let our viewers know that unions were formed back in the early 1800s. And the reason unions were formed, they fought for better wages, reasonable hours, safe working conditions, and also unions led effort to prevent child labor. Now, during that time, also in the 1800s, unions got very violent because you had people out there fighting for their rights. I love the movie called Hoffa, which Jack Nicholson played. In the movie, it's an excellent movie. As the Teamsters, they fought for the union workers and things like that. Also, we watched recently, what was that, 10,000 Men named George?
Yeah.
Yeah, that focused on the Pullman Porters. They have a great museum. Me and Melissa and my son we went last year to check it out. It's a very nice museum in Chicago. If you're ever in the area, please go visit it. It is free. So today we're going to talk about unions, and I have my guest here, my family, my friend, Mr. Ralph Portwood. How you doing, Ralph?
I'm doing great.
That's good. Tell our viewers a little bit about Ralph Portwood.
A little bit about me. I'm a correctional officer at Stateville Correctional Center. I'm also the president of ASME Local 1866, which represents the Department of Correction employees at our facility, from correctional officers to counselors to the food supervisors to the supply supervisors. Pretty much almost every aspect of the job is part of our local. A little bit more about me. I'm the executive vice president of Council 31, which is the head of our union in the state as far as ASME goes. I've been appointed to that position. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now as a union leader. I've been employed with DOC for 23 years, and I just love the fight, and I feel like I bring a voice to the table for people who sometimes can't have a voice, so that's what I do.
So you got longevity. How many people you have that's up under you that you supervise?
Well, I have an executive board that's made up about 15 people.
And which counties y'all cover?
Oh, well, that's a different aspect. Statewide, as far as me being executive vice president, that's the whole state. But as far as our political aspect of our union, we have another political arm. I'm the regional chair. Pretty much, I got Kankakee, Grundy County, Will County, LaSalle County, and parts of Cook County as the regional chair. So that's what I do as far as that part of the union.
Yeah, and Andre, I just wanted to point out, ASME stands for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. So you've got about, 60,000, 40,000 people, state employees?
Well, I think between the private sector and the public sector,
Yeah.
we represent almost 100,000 employees.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I got to just ask you, what is the current situation with ASME in the state of Illinois? What are you bargaining for?
Well, right now we're not bargaining. The governor has walked away from the bargaining table. We were at contract negotiations, doing making efforts to try to secure a fair and decent contract, for state of Illinois employees that are represented by ASME, and the governor. They walked away from the bargaining table right in the middle of negotiations and claimed we were at impasse, but we're not at impasse. We just had a major victory. Well, I would say a major victory in the courts. We just got a stay from the 4th Appellate Court out of Springfield, stating that he cannot implement none of his contractual changes because the court pretty much agreed they don't think we're at impasse. So it's going to the Illinois Supreme Court now. Well, after it's heard at the Appellate Court, then we know the next step will be the Illinois Supreme Court probably. That's what it's going to probably end up at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, excellent. And I think Melissa had a question for you.
Sure. So right now, I guess, do they call it, are you at an impasse or you're just?
Well, we're still saying the tolling agreement's in effect. That's the agreement we made about not implementing anything or going on strike or whatever until we come to impasse. So we said we're not at impasse.
Okay. because I know I've heard him like just looking at some of the footage. That's what he's stating. Okay, so in your with all of the knowledge that you have, do you think that a strike is inevitable?
Well, I would never want to have our members strike. That's the last possible situation that we want to have to do. But if he will not negotiate with us or come back to the bargaining table and finish what we started in good faith and be respectable to the state of Illinois employees, then that's probably our last choice. But we don't want to, but if we have to, we will.
Okay, so there's a part two, because I'm really getting familiar with unions and things like that. So when you go on strike, because there are jobs within ASME, or there are jobs within the state that they have to continue on. Like for instance, something that you do, just different things like that, because for the safety of the citizens of Illinois. So Governor Rauner is obligated to keep those positions open. So if a strike does happen and he has to fill those positions, regardless of whether it's a strike or not, can he? I guess my question is, will employees lose their jobs? The people that have been on jobs for years, if that ultimately winds up happening.
Well, just to be clear about things, I can't strike. I'm a correctional officer. Public safety, it's certain positions that cannot strike.
Okay.
Me, per se, like nurses, firemen, police, can't strike. The other individuals who can strike, we're protected by labor laws.
Okay.
So if we do go out and have a strike, you have a right to your job once the strike is over. So that's protected by labor law. That's a scary thing. A lot of our members was worried about.
Yeah.
He was threatened about taking, maybe trying to replace him. Well, first of all, we're talking about over, just give or take a small, I'm making this a small number.
Yeah.
Just say 25,000 employees, give or take. Where are you going to get those trained, skilled individuals to come and do those jobs? You're talking about EPA. You're talking about forensic scientists. You're talking about DCFS agents. Individuals that specialize, trained in doing their jobs. You can't just pick up somebody today and say, okay, well, if you go on strike, we can have somebody to replace you. It doesn't work like that.
There's a lot of institutional knowledge, and then
Exactly.
how we work as a state and different things like that. And I guess what I have been seeing is how Governor Rauner was trying to compare it to what Ronald Reagan did with the, I'm sure I see his grin on your face. So he was just trying to compare it to that, because we all know that, he came in here on his campaign going after teachers union, you guys, and SEI, I think it's SEIU. He really wants like a right to work state, modeling what is it Walker did in Wisconsin. Yeah, so just to keep people informed of that thing. So I do have another question, but would that be, if you had to strike, which of course we do not want that, would that be the first strike in history? Because it's
for the state employees, yes, it will be.
Okay.
Yes, it will be.
Wow. So he needs to come back to the table, in my opinion. But all right. So the second thing is, some say that the state of Illinois is broke. We don't have a budget. Have union identified, or is it just the taxpayers? Have they identified where the money would come from to satisfy the needs of the employees? Or does it just all fall on taxpayers, because that's not really a revenue generating organization like businesses and things like that?
Well, first of all, it's not about the taxpayers, because it's getting the budget passed. And if the budget was passed, then the business as usual will continue. It's just that he can't reach the budget with the General Assembly because of the ideas he's bringing to the table. But first and foremost, what I think what you might be trying to get at, like our pension and the health care that's in our contract. Well, first of all, it was not being said about us, especially our pension. We pay into our pension system, coming off our paycheck.
Correct.
And we put into our pension system, and the issue was that created this situation is them skipping and making partial payments to the pension system since inception.
Absolutely.
Our union was the only union that fought against them skipping payments from the inception of the pension when they started this pension system in the 70s. So what started the funding for it. So we fought against it, always said you shouldn't skip payments, because we know what happened. You kick the can down the street.
Absolutely.
And that's what it is. But far as you know, the governor, the numbers he's been giving us is misleading. That's not what we asking for in our contract. We asking for, you know, just to be compensated for the job that we do. We didn't come into the bargaining asking for humongous pay increases or changes to the pension. You know, that's not what happened. We want to maintain. We understood that. We even brought cost-saving mechanisms to the table to help the state save money.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, just looking at the history of Illinois and the governors, I was able to see that Thompson, Edgar, Ryan, Blagojevich, Quinn, and now Reiner, basically, I guess it started around the Thompson era, like in the 70s that you said, and all they kept doing was kicking it down the can, creating these political slush funds, and then borrowing from the political slush funds. Now your pension, now you can't even pay your people. So yeah, so that, I'm glad you brought that up, and it definitely needs to be addressed, how the problem began in order to get to the solutions. So I'm gonna toss it back over to Andre so he can ask you some questions.
So Ralph, I have to ask you, while most Republicans fight against unions like Ronner, what role have the Democrats played in the fight?
I mean, I would say this. There's been some Republicans that's been strong union supporters as well. Senator Sam McCann is one senator in the state of Illinois that stood up on behalf of state employees and working class people in his region, as well with our union. Far as, I mean, I don't want to speak for the Democratic Party as a whole, but I would just say that we feel like the Democratic Party needs to get stronger on standing with working class people in this state. I think that our votes have been taken for granted by both parties.
Yeah.
We don't realize the power we have in voting or getting involved. You know, I tell my members all the time, this country only moves when the working class people spend money.
Yes.
That's it. So that's the only time that's the only time the economy goes up is when we have money. We can't afford to get a bonus at work and put it in the bank. Hey, you need to buy, you know, truck might need some new tires. My daughter needs a new computer.
Right.
So we put that money right back into the economy when we have money to spend. And that's why we fighting so hard and trying to get these politicians to understand we are the individuals that make this country move. Why aren't you out there fighting for us?
So is it fair to say that, in all fairness to Ronner, that we had a mess before he even got into office, and considering that the Democrats have controlled pretty much Illinois for years?
I would say this, that our state, it has been in financial woes for a long time. But coming in and not working with the General Assembly to create a balanced budget is not helping us at all. It's putting us in worse shape than we've ever been in years. Probably since then, you know, far as I can remember in my short career doing what I'm doing, but I don't remember it being this bad as far as the budget goes. But I do think that our state, if they're willing to come together, we can fix the problem.
Yeah. And then with the upcoming election, do you think candidates, Chris Kennedy or J.B. Pritzker, have the solutions to get this state running effectively? Well, you had a chance to meet both of them. So
yes,
what's your opinion?
did. It's too early in the campaign to see. I do like some of the things that they was said when we did get a chance to meet those individuals. I would just hope that they understand the importance of, you know, what's going on with our economy, within the workforce of the state, and do something different, and not the same old rhetoric that we've been used to year after year after year. Come in with the actual plan, working with and getting some ideas from working class people, because I think some of the best ideas come from the general folks that do the job day in and day out.
Yes, I agree. So Melissa got one last question for you.
I do. Actually, I have another question just based upon just this conversation. Like I'm just doing the research and stuff like that. So some of the employees, and I believe, I'm just trying to verify whether these are things you're fighting for. Some of them say they don't get breaks. Some of them say they have to eat their lunch. They're not allowed to go out. I mean, not like they have to stay there, but they only get 30 minutes. So if you're working in a certain facility, you don't have 30 minutes to go out and get a lunch. And I guess, are they, like, the working hours, is that part of what you guys are fighting for? Because just from some of the things that I heard just online, and you know, it could be fake news. So I was just wondering, is that rolled up into what you're trying to bargain for as well?
Well, as far as the breaks goes, I mean, I haven't heard that, but I can't
Okay.
speak for every agency.
Correct. Okay.
I know a lot of our members. This, like you said, this one thing's not said. They work through their lunch break.
Right.
That we short staffed. The workload is not getting any smaller; it's getting bigger.
Right.
So some people will sit and work through their lunch break
Yeah.
for the sake of trying to get the job done.
Yeah.
And none of those things are, when you hear the
Acknowledged.
governor or the individuals
Right.
speaking against working class people, they never talk about the importance
Right.
of what we do, the sacrifice we make with our family, giving up weekends,
Right.
or being mandated to work extra hours even if you didn't want to. Those things are never discussed. But those things just take place on a daily basis.
Right.
And I got to jump in here. There's an argument. Most employees, you have to work 40 hours, then overtime kick in.
Right.
Now, from what I was studying, y'all work 37.5 hours. Then after that, it kicks in. Would you say a lot of people think union workers are being selfish and they should be doing the 40 hours like everybody else before the overtime kicks in? What's your opinion?
No,
on that?
because that was negotiated in our contract. Nothing was given. So in order to receive that, first of all, we don't get paid for our lunches either.
Okay.
We don't get our half-hour lunch is not paid. It's unpaid. We're supposed to get 2 15-minute breaks. We never get. That's
Right.
not being discussed. And that was negotiated in good faith. And as far as collective bargaining goes, sometimes you give and take. Now, I'm not going to say that because I don't think that happens in every agency as far as that goes. But I know that, yeah, we don't get paid for our lunches. And half the time, we don't even go to lunch. So, like you said, we eat in the units. A lot of our
Right.
members, even the non-security employees usually most of them some up eating at their desk. So that was something that was a term of the collective bargaining agreement, and is part of our contract.
We appreciate it. I don't know how much time we have left, so I'm gonna let Melissa finish
Okay.
out the
So
question.
the last question, I think, unless something just comes to our head, just what do you think is the pathway to resolving this issue? What would you like to see happen in order to get this issue resolved?
I would like to
Or
see.
just freestyle it.
I would like to see. Seriously, I would like to see the governor come back to the table, and we start back negotiating, and come to a agreement that both sides can live with. I think it's only fair for the state of Illinois. It's only fair for the state employees that do the job that most can't do. And it's the right thing to do. We've never had a strike in this state, and we
Yeah.
don't want to have one now.
Correct.
So if the governor's watching this podcast, or your cable channel, come back to the bargaining table. We think it's the right thing to do. We've been known to be a little tough when it comes to union, membership. But I will say this: we do what's fair, and we're not trying to ask for anything but what's fair for the employees of the state of Illinois.
Okay. All right.
Melissa, you got some solutions? Contemporary living, we are all about solutions.
So solutions. So first off, thank you for your time and just being a part of this. Right now, the whole country is in a state of crisis when it comes to politics, when it comes to rights, when it comes to jobs. You need to get involved. You need to become a part of it. If you're a state employee and you don't know about these things that Ralph is talking about, you definitely need to get ahead of the power curve and get involved and see what's going on. And if you never knew anything about unions, such as me, I'm military all my life. We don't have, military unions, but get involved in what's going on in your community and what's going on in your state, because it's very important. So we want to thank you. Remember, AFSCME, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Look it up, and you're AFSCME 31? Is it 31? Okay.
That's Council 31.
Council 31.
I'm AFSCME Local 1866. That's
Okay.
our local number, 1866.
All right, and if you're in those communities that he talked about, look it up. Look it up. So I'm just gonna come up with some of my overall solutions. So what I think like Ralph said, create that balanced budget. The governor needs to come back to the table. We need to stop whining and being so partisan on, oh, well, if it's not me, then no one can have it. If it's not my way, it's the highway. It's called the United States for a reason. That means we have the ability and the capability to come together and do negotiations. So don't just walk away from the table because it's not going the way you want. I think as far as the larger picture, term limits for politicians, there definitely needs to be term limits. Look what's happened since we started talking about this whole political slush fund and things like that. It started in the 70s where they could not make payments and things like that. If you want each individual citizen to be responsible, you have to be responsible as well. When I'm talking state, I'm talking the governor, everyone has to be responsible. But those are some of my things. It's not, we're not in an environment where it's business as usual. You can't keep kicking the problems down the can and leaving it for the future generations to take care of, and stop taking people's votes for granted, because we realize that now and we're going to do something about it. So those are some of my solutions.
Okay, all right. I can see my wife was passionate over there. I want to first say that we're not biased here at Contemporary Living. We're all about solutions. So if Governor Ronner wants to come on to the show, he's very welcome to. If you have any of his representatives that want to come and speak on behalf of what's going on with the unions, they are free to come on anytime. Also, for our viewers, if you want to catch Contemporary Living, you can catch us on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Comcast Channel 19. You can also follow us on Facebook at Contemporary Living. Not only that, if you want to email us regarding this show, you can email us at farmerandhill@gmail.com. And my solution is this. You know, last night me and Melissa was talking and I wrote down a solution. But I've listened to all this here and I kind of watched Dave Ramsey last night.
Right.
and I have come to the understanding that everybody from the White House on down, from congressmen to senators to aldermen to mayors to state workers to regular workers to those that are self-employment, we all need a free class of financial peace. And that's what we need. There's no way in the world that people should be skipping out on payments. Mm-hmm. There's no way in the world we should be talking about the economy right now, or what's going on in local government, and we can't fund this and fund that. The problem is we continue to overspend and we live beyond our means, and that is one of the great problems we have in our country, and I'm guilty of it myself. So I'll speak to myself first when I'm talking about this issue here. So yes, that was my solution, Melissa. I thought about it, I said, you know what, I'm throwing these out. We need some financial peace. and it's all about budgeting your money, and not only that, it's all about the people. When it's all said and done, it's about the people and how we protect the people and making sure that our people are taken care of. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people in position who wards suck. They're hurting. Abandoned homes everywhere, violence everywhere, but we continue to pay them all the money, but yet alone they're not doing nothing in their communities. So we just thank Ralph for tuning in with us today. Yes. And we appreciate you for taking time out, driving from Joliet to come hang out with us for 30 minutes. And as always, we thank everybody for tuning in to Contemporary Living with Farmer and Hill. And as always, we thank God for his unmerited, undeserving favor called grace. For grace is the total absence of any works. You can't work for grace. You can't buy grace. You can't even tarry for grace. It is simply what God has given to each and every one of us for believing for what he did for us on the cross on this Easter Sunday. For Christ died for our sins. He was buried, and he rose again the third day for our justification. On behalf of myself, my lovely wife, Melissa Farmer, Hill, and Ralph Portwood, go out and be a blessing. Be blessed. Be great.
Bye-bye.
I'm a product of mentoring. I think if I didn't have mentoring as a young individual, I'd probably be living in prison instead of working in prison. There's two organizations that I'm very, very proud of being a part of. One is Men Who Cook. It's an organization in Will County. It's for the Will County Advocacy Center for at-risk kids that's been abused. We do fundraising every year. This year we raised over $108,000 for the organization. And this is going to go to trying to purchase a house, and so the kids will be able to come to a house and give their statements versus a police station. And it's near and dear to my heart. We got so many kids that's being abused and mistreated in this country as well as this world. That something needs to be done about it, and that's very important to me. The other organization I'm a part of is Life Choices That We Make. It's a mentoring group. Actually, Darren Hayes is the director of this organization. We provide mentoring for at-risk kids from the age of 10 to actually 25. We mentor them. We got tutoring for them. We helping them cope with the fact that, a lot of them don't have fathers, and we're trying to play a mentoring role to teach them how to be, productive and respectable young men and women throughout this state. It's been pretty big in the Chicagoland area. We actually moved into the Joliet area as well. But Life Choices We Make, it's a great program. If anybody want to look it up, it's on Facebook under Life Choices We Make. Darren Hayes is the director. So please, if we're looking for volunteers, anybody wants to be a mentor or anything that you can do to help the organization will be greatly appreciated. And thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Teammates on the track.